Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people.
Which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara Riska, life coach, wife, and the mother of 4 incredible and unique kids. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I completely lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and grace that once felt so completely lacking. I started the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves up against what feels impossible. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle the dreams that you hold impossible now. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you're a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I am recording again in the morning, and I just love the quietness where my mind isn't, I guess it's my mind's fresh. It hasn't started to do all the things that people's brains do during the day. And my guess is that you are done with school and into summertime, because everybody I know, except for myself and of course our friends at our school, are still in school. At the time of this recording, we still have 2 days of school left. We finish tomorrow. And wowzers. We are so mentally ready. My kids are like compiling a box of all the school stuff they're bringing home to burn. And I will fully support them in that. Our school asked if we wanted to keep the Chromebooks that we've been using all year as a nice gesture, saying, "Hey, we don't need them anymore, and we need to make some space at school and all these things." And in my mind, I said, "Heck no, we're bringing those babies back. No, thank you. It's we done. We are done. We are done with the distance learning. We want to be done." Anyhow, that is a very big side note. It has nothing to do with our episode. And we're going to have some fun today talking about decisions. I had a hard time deciding what to do the episode on. Do you see what I did there? Actually, it's a true story. I do have a hard time deciding what I want to record these solo episodes on. For many of you, I get feedback that you love them. You get a lot of value from them. And I'm always wondering, what exactly do you want to hear? And actually, yesterday, when I was deciding what to talk about, I just went on a walk and I really just thought of you guys. I thought of the different women I've talked to. I thought of really what would help serve you most and what would help kind of meet you where you're at. And the first thing that came to my mind was stemming from something that really helped me in my own life. And so I have a couple other ideas I'm going to use for other episodes, but really it's about making decisions. And I was joking about obviously having a hard time deciding what to record on. And it is true that I've noticed lately that I've had a really hard time making decisions. And here's the thing that I think is most interesting to keep in mind in regards to decisions, that when we're avoiding making decisions, we're usually trying to protect ourselves from some sort of fear or trying to avoid a feeling, which I guess is also protecting ourselves from a fear. And I know for myself, when I'm trying to avoid a decision, it's because I'm trying to get something right. If in my mind, this is how the thought process goes in my mind. If I get it right, then I'll be safe. Then I'll be on the right way, very much in quotations. It's like there's like this, I have this almost like the default process in my brain pictures like this vast open field and a very narrow little pathway that I have to figure out how to get on. But here's the funny thing. There's no pathway. There's no little goat trail that will be the right way, that will keep me safe from failing, that will keep me safe from feeling bored. I don't know, keep me safe from all the things that I just don't desire to feel, that from my own set of desires feels icky. So the first thought I want you to entertain, the first belief, is that there's no right way. There's only the way you choose. And this is something I come back to when I find myself in indecision, trying to get it right. I first kind of stop and remind myself, okay, there's no problem here. Nothing's gone wrong. I kind of calm myself down, because when I'm uncalm, we'll call it, I definitely think there's a problem. Like there's a lot of problems. I've got to fix them all, and I've got to figure out the right way to do them. You can hear the energy coming there, right? Where it's like, it gets to be real critical. It gets to be real judgmental. It gets to be very hard and confusing, because it's confusing when you're trying to figure out something that doesn't exist, as in the right way to do something, right? So you can imagine how unpleasant this experience is. And I mean, it's fresh for me. So I'm definitely able to connect what it feels like to stay in indecision or to feel indecisive or confused. Not my favorite. So something I want to give you is several new ways to look at decisions that I think you're going to find helpful. The first one I'll call how to make a decision. This is going to be a lot more simple than you think. It's really just like, I could ask the same question. How do you drop a pen? And you would just hold it up above the desk or wherever you're standing, and you would just drop it. Like, you just do it. And I know that sounds really simple, but that's actually as simple as making a decision. Another fun example is, how do you jump into a cold lake? You decide and you just do it. And if we think back to the lake analogy, if you've decided to do it and that decision is done, if you're not actually wondering and vacillating if you're going to do it, if you're not going to do it, then you're in this space of anticipating, and like, you're probably bracing for the cold. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt. But you aren't thinking and saying, should I do it? Should I not do it? Are the people around me doing it? How am I going to do this? You're actually living in the impact of your decision. And that, I will say, feels a lot better than actually being in indecision and not even knowing if you're going to do it. One of the things to keep in mind is that when you're staying in indecision, it's very different than deciding and then redeciding or changing your mind. And this is a distinction I just recently kind of clarified for myself, because I had made some decisions and then about a week later, I changed everything. And if I'm fully honest, I was kind of beating myself up about it. Oh, I should have stayed with my first decision. I'm being indecisive, which was actually not true. I actually changed my mind because I had new information that I didn't have before. And one of the ways to distinguish and to tell if you are staying in indecision or deciding is you will know how you feel when you're doing it. You can also look at your reasons, right? So if I look at my reasons for redeciding the thing that I redecided, I'll spare you the details. You can look at the reasons. My reason was that I wanted to make it simpler. I realized the first time I decided, I did everything real quick. I made decisions. I was super proud of myself. And then about a week later, as I was processing it a little bit more, I was actually typing up an email. I realized I really overcomplicated it before, and I wanted to simplify. And so I did. And so my reasons, I really I simplified. And I would make that decision. I would make that change every time. Now, if my reason for deciding to do something different was because I wanted to avoid looking stupid, for instance, that could be something I would do, then I would say, I don't really like that reason. I'm committed to being out there in the world unapologetically. And sometimes that might end up in me looking stupid or foolish or whatever thing I really don't want to do, but I'm going to do anyways. So when you're in indecision, you're also going to know because you're going to experience an energy leak. It's that back and forth, that no landing, all the swirling in your head. That's indecision. Grasping and trying to find all the right ways and get more information. Oh, this is a good one. A lot of us think that if you get more information, you'll be able to make a better decision. And so alternatively, I challenge you to make a decision with what you have now, like a decision. One of the things we're trying to decide is when to go to Disneyland this summer. I've been in a lot of indecision about it. What's the best day? Is it going to be too hot? Is it going to be too busy? I mean, you can see how I'm good at this. I'm really good at indecision. And so this morning, actually, it's been a busy morning already. It's only 7:00. I decided I need to talk to my husband. It's going to be July 3rd or July 4th. I looked at the calendar. I said, that's the best day. We're going to deal with it. If it's busy, it's going to be busy. We can always redecide to abort mission. But now I'm like, we're going to go July 3rd or 4th. It feels so much better than when should we go? It might be too busy. Should we go? Is it too much money? Do you see the difference? It feels a lot different. And if you're tired a lot, this is why. And I'll give you another example of why we sometimes avoid decisions. We avoid decisions, again, remember what I opened with, because we want to avoid the feeling that we think we're going to have if we make the wrong decision. Now, this might be embarrassing to admit, but the average time that an article of clothing exists in my closet without being worn when I buy it is about 3 weeks. Or my new thing, my new thing, and I show my husband, I'm like, babe, this is getting bad, is that I'll wear the article of clothing, but I'll tuck the tag in. It's really bad. Not because I intend on returning it necessarily, I don't, but I like to leave that out. I like to leave that little bit of indecision of being able to return it because I have a real particular taste on clothes. It's a thing. I'll spare you the details on that, but very sensitive. Okay. And so finding clothes that don't hurt my skin is a challenge. Okay. So I notice this and I watch myself doing it. In some cases, I actually say, this is funny. It's not a problem. I'll just keep doing this because it's working for me. In other cases, actually yesterday, we did some shopping over the weekend. I always like to get like new fancy workout clothes for my birthday. So as you all know, my birthday was a couple weeks ago. Husband and I finally went on a date to go do some shopping. I, had this little bag full of clothing. And like I said, it could very easily have stayed in the bag or even maybe hanging up in my closet for me to stay in indecision if I liked it or if it was going to fit right. Yesterday, I am very proud of myself because I took the tags off and I wore the first outfit. I was very proud of myself. And I'll say, I actually felt very cool. I needed some new clothes. And so that was actually very fun. Okay. So that's just another example of the kinds of things we do to stay in indecision. I don't like the feeling of not deciding on my clothes. I would like to feel differently. Okay. So I want to also look at what would it take to be decisive. One thing I think is it's going to you have to give yourself permission to change your mind when you want to. Remember earlier how I said, if you like your reason for changing your mind, change your mind. Something to consider is that it's completely neutral, meaning it has no good or bad weight about it when you do something different than you planned to, or when you said you would do something and you didn't. Most of us think, oh my gosh, that's bad. I'm not following through. There's a problem. And I would say that in and of itself, you didn't go to the gym. That's a fact. There's no good or bad about that. I know most of you would say, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. I didn't do it. That's your thought about it. And that's what's creating the negative experience that you're having about what you're deciding to do. If you step on back a little bit and you just look at the thing and you realize there's no good or bad about it, it just is what it is, then it kind of opens up some space to, one, stop putting so much pressure on yourself and stop relating to yourself in such a judgmental and critical way. And then it leads you into curiosity. Then you can say, why didn't I do that? What happened? Do you see the total shift in tone that you would have with yourself? If you take away the automatic judgment and criticalness because you recognize there's no good or bad about what you did or didn't do, or what you did or didn't decide, and it just opens up. Most of us relate to promises as something that cannot be broken. I know I did. This was so interesting when I first looked at it. It was years ago now. But promises, to me, I'm like, oh, well, you can't make a promise without the full expectation and like basically it's as good as done. And now I say like that energy is awesome, but what it would lead to for me is I would really basically never promise to do anything. And so when at work, it looks like you never promise to fulfill your goals. You say, I'll try. And at home, it would look like you never promise your child that you're going to do something for them or with them. You kind of leave everything open. Again, this is like no decisions. This is living outside of commitments, usually to avoid failure. And so I want you to think of a new way about promising that opens up the ability to promise, to live inside of that promise or commitment, if you will. And then if for any reason, when you realize that promise will not be fulfilled, you just make a new promise. You say, I'm sorry, I learned new information, or I failed. This is my new promise. And it feels so good to give yourself permission to be able to break a promise. Not because you're flaky, not because you didn't try, but because you gave everything you had, everything that was in your control, and it didn't happen. Again, there's no good or bad about that. It's just what it is. So I've talked a little bit about the difference about the idea of a commitment. That instead of, I want you to think about making decisions, less about making plans and more about lining up with the small actions that you're going to take to fulfill your commitment. So this is really interesting. Many of the people that I talk to initially, when they're saying, hey, maybe I want to do coaching. I don't know what I want to do. I want some of these things, but I don't know, this is the problem. This is why I can't do it. Most of them are trying to figure out how they're going to do what they want in order to make a decision, rather than focusing on simply what they want, what they're committed to, and then letting the how be that's the afterthought, right? So focusing on the what and not the how. In summary, I'll recap this again. Let me say it again. Decide what you want, what you're committed to, then go to work on creating it. If we do it the other way around, welcome to the land of indecision, my friends. Because if you don't decide where you're going, then it's very tricky to even answer the question of figuring out how. Remember that vast open field I described to you? Well, imagine if there was 100 different points that you're trying to get to at the same time because you never decided where you're actually going. I mean, my heart rate, I think, is rising as I'm even thinking about that because it sounds so overwhelming. Okay, so if you feel overwhelmed, listen to this episode again, apply the exercise I'm going to give you at the end. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to guarantee you will feel less overwhelmed. I mean, I know I can't control how you feel, but I'm going to guarantee it. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. I want to use actually a quick story on just that last point of focusing on the what, not the how. And I was watching my kids play Rummy Cube a couple weeks ago, actually. And so Rummy Cube, if you don't know, is a game where you have little number tiles and you have to make a series of patterns or series of numbers or same numbers, different colors. So you can rearrange the tiles once they're played on the board. So it's a fun game. If you can't place a tile, you have to take a tile. And the point of the game is getting rid of all of your tiles. I was playing with all of my children. And I like to say I was at a little bit of a disadvantage because my 4-year-old daughter was on my team. And it's almost like having a handicap distracting you the whole time. Anyhow, I was watching my kids play. And there was a lot of time to watch because they take forever on their turns. But the reason they take forever is because they don't figure out all the different steps that they're going to take on their turn. They just start playing their tiles. They figure out the first step. They do that and they rearrange all the tiles. And it actually kind of in a funny way triggered me because I was like, oh my gosh, they're not going to be able to put all the tiles back. They're going to lose where they're at. This isn't going to work. Seriously, this was happening when I was playing with them. And I was thinking, wow, this is really interesting watching the way they play versus how I play. I played where I was like, okay, I've got to figure out steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would this work? No. Okay. Can't do that. I would literally try to figure out every step of the way before I would move a single tile. And I was blown away. And like I joked earlier, they all actually performed better than I did in this game. And I actually don't think it was because my daughter, I think it was because they allowed themselves just to know the next step and they weren't held back by this is so silly, the fear that I had about not being able to put all the tiles back. And I love how this example is so meaningless, but it's actually a really good example of what oftentimes as children grow up into adults, they become less willing to make mistakes or to fail, right? So this just was not even on the radar of my children when they were playing this game. Okay, so as we go to apply, I want you to think about what decisions you're feeling uncertain of right now. If there was not a way to get it right or wrong, what would you decide? And I have an example, or I have an exercise here that I'm going to invite you to really kind of put all this to application. So I want you to make a list of all the things that you've been thinking or spinning about or staying in indecision, waffling about. Dump them out of your brain. Just put them on a piece of paper. I actually did this last night. It was so helpful. Okay, now go through them. And I want you to identify what you are afraid of, what you're trying to protect yourself of in staying in indecision. Like for me, the simplest things are I was afraid of wasting money. I was afraid of wasting time. I was afraid of not getting it right. I was afraid of failure. That probably sums up all of them. I don't have the list right in front of me. Okay, here's the fun part. Go through and decide. Make a decision. Remember, you're going to feel fresh after this episode because you're going to realize, okay, you always have the ability to repromise. There's no right way, only the way I choose. So it's so simple when you look through that lens. Remember, you're deciding what you're committed to. It's okay to change course along the way as long as you like your reasons. Okay, we're going to wrap up there. This exercise, I think, like I said, I guarantee you'll feel less overwhelmed. And if you're like me, you're usually on the go when you're listening to a podcast and you think, oh my gosh, that's a great exercise. I'm totally going to do that. And then you park and then you forget all about it. So, you may not know that I actually send out a weekly email that contains a lot of things, but one of the things I'm including in it now is what I call 4 and 4. 4 is my favorite number. That's how I came up with this. It's 4 ways to apply the content of the podcast in under 4 minutes. My guess is that if you are decisive and you make decisions without overthinking them, that you will be so surprised at how quickly you can do things. And that actually is how I design every single one of the 4 and 4, is that we don't actually need as much time to think about something as we think we do. What takes a lot of time is staying in indecision. And so the 4 and 4, I will summarize the exercise and invite you to 4 minutes, like literally 4 minutes you can do this exercise if you focus and if you allow yourself to make mistakes and have to go redecide something later. The other thing I want to make sure you know about is Being Mom Together. It's the group coaching program that I've created where you get to actually get coached on where you feel stuck. Now, I can't tell you what it feels like. Like, it feels like coming up from holding your breath when you get elevation above where you're feeling stuck. I mean, it's a true story that yesterday I was swimming around in my own indecisiveness. I think I've given you enough examples to know that this is not something that I have the idea is that you never have any of this 100% mastered, that you're always pushing your edge if you're growing and if you're expanding yourself. And then for myself, I'm up against some edges I haven't gone past before. And so I have a lot of triggers happening right now for me. And as much as I know that they're good, oftentimes I still need that reflection from somebody else outside of my brain to help me see what I'm doing. Because when we're in it, it's just like when you're looking in the mirror. Without the ability to like hold up another mirror, like you can't see behind your own head. No matter how many times you turn and twist and try, sometimes what's the most helpful is to actually have somebody help hold that mirror up for us. So that's the premise of Being Mom Together, that there's a combination of content where I teach deeper concepts than I do in the podcast in a sequential way so you can apply it. And one of the moms that's in the group, she shared with me that she has grown more in the several months that we've done in the first cohort than she did in a whole year of therapy. And if you're like, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? Then let's talk about that. It's important to know the difference. Because coaching really is looking at where you're at now and really helping you go where you want to go. By all means, all of us moms, especially in the special needs journey, let's do all the therapy because that's helpful too. But there just may be a different tool for a different purpose. I'm going to wrap up there. It was so good to be with you. I'd love to hear from you as you make your decisions, as you take on the exercise, and as you feel better as a result of it. I'll see you next week. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.